Hello, I am the universe, and so are you. And this is the video autobiography of the universe. Now, when I say the universe, I mean all the universes. The pre-universe, the post-universe, the non-universe, the infinite parallel universes, even the void. Now, the universe has always been around and will always be around. But humans can't conceive of that because humans can't conceive of the concept of infinity. Because humans think in a linear, straight way, and reality is actually curved. The universe is a giant ball of energy plasma, and it always has been, and it always will be. Matter is simply energy that is cooled down and slowed down because it got old. So 15 billion years ago, the universe expanded to a point to where it was large enough that humans could comprehend. And as it expanded and cooled, it formed dark matter. And as it expanded and cooled, it formed dark energy. And as it expanded and cooled, it formed quantum particles. And as it expanded and cooled, it formed subatomic particles. And as it expanded and cooled, it formed hydrogen atoms. And these hydrogen atoms expanded and cooled, and gravity acted upon them and formed hydrogen clouds, which then contracted to form stars, which then formed the other elements. And 5 billion years ago, in the Milky Way galaxy, the sun was created and the earth was created. And then 4 billion years ago, due to random chance and the correct chemicals being in the correct spot with the correct amount of energy, by chance formed life, bacteria, which reproduced and evolved and mutated and eventually became algae. Which created oxygen in the atmosphere with photosynthesis and evolved into the plants of the ocean, which evolved into the plants of the land. And then when plants started eating plants, because there were so many plants, they became fish or animals. And then they evolved into fish and reptiles and mammals and monkeys, and then apes, which are big monkeys. And then in South Africa, 3 million years ago, an ape called humans was evolved into existence. And this was an interesting development. And now you've got animals that are capable of consciousness, and so humans became symbolically, metaphorically, the universe being aware of itself. Mm-hmm. Now, humans had a lot of advantages over other animals. Large brain, walking on 2 feet, hands with opposable thumbs. They were big, they were social. And about 200,000 years ago, they busted out of Africa and colonized the entire planet. And humans developed language so they could communicate with each other and create societies and cultures. They learned how to farm, agriculture, and domesticate animals. And they created myths and legends about their history and creation myths. And evolved different societies all over the world, different civilizations. And that's called history, human history. And gradually, over time, the earth became somewhat connected as people traveled and traded and learned more about other countries and other civilizations. And eventually humans evolved into robots, which evolved into artificial intelligence, which evolved into other different things. And billions of years from now, robots will go on to colonize the universe. And that's the history of the universe. But I left out a few things. So let's back up. Let's back up to 2,500 years ago. Now, 2,500 years ago, there was a dude named Buddha in Nepal, and he headed south to India, where he chilled out and grooved around and got very philosophical. And he started to question the nature of reality and who he was and stuff like that. And he came to the conclusion that he couldn't entirely trust his perceptions, because if he thought he was walking down the street and then he woke up and realized he was dreaming, he realized that he couldn't know for sure things existed, because he didn't know if they were illusion or not, because he didn't know if he was dreaming or not. So he realized that things may or may not exist, but he realized that he knew that he existed because his thoughts existed. I think, therefore I am. So Buddha said, well, okay, I know I exist, but that's all I know. Everything else is an assumption. So I don't know the universe exists, because it could be an illusion. And if the universe does exist, that's great. But if the universe doesn't exist, what am I? I can't be part of the universe because the universe doesn't exist. So what am I? And Buddha said that if the universe doesn't exist, then I am the soul, because I'm something, but I'm not part of the universe. And that's the definition of the soul. The soul is who you are if the universe doesn't exist and you're not part of the universe. So Buddha invented the soul, he created the soul, and this is not religion, this is philosophy. Buddha was the first guy to cross the finish line of philosophy, and he invented the soul. Now, everybody can cross the finish line of philosophy and become philosophers if they understand this very simple and easy to understand equation that I've just laid out for you today. Anyway, this information traveled to the East, where the Chinese were intelligent enough and sophisticated enough to understand it, and they created Buddhism, which is a philosophy, in my opinion, the correct philosophy. This information also traveled to the West, to Jerusalem, where they misinterpreted it twice. The first time was Christianity, and the second time was Islam. And it was an easy misinterpretation to make. They misinterpreted it either intentionally or unintentionally. But they said souls plural when it's actually soul singular. And it is a big difference. So they got it wrong twice, and lots of hijinks and shenanigans ensued and continue to ensue to this day. Now, we're going to look at European history. The white apes. Modern Western civilization began and continues to this day, but it began in Greece around 2,500 years ago, where the Greeks created democracy, philosophy, science, math, theater, psychology, history, science, politics, all these things that are the foundation for Western civilization and continue to be the foundation for Western civilization. And good for the Greeks. Anyway, the Romans came along and borrowed all these things from the Greeks. And then the Romans started to colonize Europe. And then the Romans became the Holy Roman Empire with Christianity. And so then the Romans colonized Western Europe. They weren't able to colonize Eastern Europe. So you had a divide in the middle of Europe called Germany. And everything to the west was Christian, and everything to the east was barbarian. And it's still kind of like that. The good guys being the barbarians and the bad guys being the Christians. And then you had the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, where everybody's fighting each other over real estate and imperialism. And nationalism, fascism, eventually communism. But then you have the Renaissance and you have all these new ideas and all these scientific discoveries. And because you have unlimited slave labor, basically, you have the technological revolution, and you have the Industrial Revolution, and you have technology. And you combine technology with a solid government structure, a solid society, and you have lots of advances. And you have the Europeans, the white apes, the Western Europeans, taking over the whole planet by force. Colonialism. And that went on for a long time. Some might think it's still going on today. And then you had a couple world wars. And then you had the hippies and environmentalism in the 60s and 70s. And they were like, hey, we don't want to kill the planet with human overpopulation. Because they understood that apes were infesting the planet Earth, which is one living organism, much like a cancer. And apes were destroying the planet Earth with overpopulation. And that was a suicide course, because if we kill the planet, we kill ourselves. If we destroy the Earth, we die with it. So the hippies and the environmentalists said, hey, We don't want to kill the planet. We want to save the planet. We don't want to destroy the environment. We want to preserve the environment for future generations. We don't want to cut down all the trees because we need them to create oxygen so we can breathe. We don't want to strip the planet of all its resources because we need those resources to survive. Air, water, land, etc. So the hippies and the environmentalists were correct, but for whatever reason or reasons, they didn't quite succeed in their attempt to persuade the human race to not kill the planet. And the human race continued to kill the planet. And now we're in dire straits. However, in 1980, the Chinese government created the policy of depopulationism, the one woman, one child policy. And I want to spend some time on this because this is a major development, perhaps the major development so far in the history of humans on planet Earth. In 1980, the Chinese government created depopulationism. So let's talk about depopulationism. Let's talk about what depopulationism means. Because it's very important to understand what it means. It's very important to discuss this matter, to understand this word, and to think about how you individually relate to this. You know, are you a depopulationist? Are you not a depopulationist? Do you know what depopulationism is? These are all important questions that everyone needs to ask themselves and answer these questions very thoroughly and very quickly and very precisely. So we're going to talk about depopulationism, and we're going to talk about it for quite a while until I'm very confident that you have internalized this issue and this word, because it's of vital importance to everybody and everything. Depopulationism is the greatest achievement of mankind so far. It is the most important issue. It is the only relevant topic. And unfortunately, lots of humans don't understand it, don't care about it, don't talk about it, aren't allowed to talk about it, haven't heard of it. So we need to educate each other about this matter globally, immediately, thoroughly. And depopulationism means that it is illegal for any human being on the planet Earth or in the solar system to reproduce a second time for the next few centuries. Depopulationism means that females have a choice. They can either make the correct choice and not reproduce at all, or they can make the incorrect choice and reproduce one time. There is no longer a third option. The third option to reproduce more than once has been removed. Okay? People don't have the right to kill the planet. People don't have the right to threaten the planet. People don't have the right to destroy the environment. People don't have the right. People don't have the freedom to kill the earth. People don't have the freedom to destroy the environment anymore. That's depopulationism. And that's where we're at. And that's where we're going to stay at. So depopulationism is a line. And you're either on the correct side of this line or you're not. If you're a depopulationist, you're on the right side of this fence. If you're not a depopulationist, you're on the wrong side. Now, depopulationists are people who are intelligent, and people who are not depopulationists are people who are stupid and or insane and or evil. People who are depopulationists are people who are intelligent or of even average intelligence. Or there's depopulationists out there who are even of slightly below average intelligence. So if you are dumb, you can still be a depopulationist and you can still be a moral citizen. And if you are dumb, you have the opportunity, hopefully, to become intelligent. And best of luck with that. So if you're not a depopulationist, you can change and you can become a depopulationist. If you have 10 kids, you can change and you can become a depopulationist. Depopulationists are people who don't reproduce and who feel that it is illegal for other people to reproduce more than once. And this is the only way to save the planet. And so depopulationists are people who are trying to save the planet from humans. And people who are not depopulationists are people who are killing the planet either because they're too stupid to know what's going on, or they're evil and they don't care, or they're insane and they want to kill the planet. So depopulationism is really the only important issue and the only important topic. And it's not being discussed at all in the media because the media is part of the government. And the government is fascist. And that's basically the situation we're in. So what we need to do as depopulationists is work with each other and work with freedom of speech and democracy and elect depopulationist leaders legally. And we need to run for political office as depopulationists. And we need to vote for depopulationists. And we need to replace the stupid people, the non-depopulationists who run the government with depopulationists, smart people. And we need to do this worldwide, and we need to do it now. And we will, or we're toast. And we should have done this long ago, but we didn't because we suck. So depopulationism is really everything. We need to, right now there's 8 billion people on the planet. And that number's increasing. It's going the wrong direction. It needs to be decreasing. And we need to go down to a sustainable level of people on the planet, which is a number that nobody knows, but that's okay. It's a number for future generations to determine. I'm going to guess it's around 2 or 3 billion. Anyway, we're going in some kind of kamikaze suicide direction by continuing to go up. We need to go in the correct direction and go down. And depopulationism is the only way to do that, or the only fair and civilized way to do that. And so that's depopulationism. And this is the battle. This is the war. This is the struggle. This is the deal. This is what's happening. And, the good guys are losing, and we've been losing for like ever. And if we end up losing the whole deal, then the whole planet is going to be destroyed. The planet itself will probably survive. However, it won't be fit for human habitation. Basically, the more the population of humans increase on the planet, as the population of people on the planet goes up, the standard of living for people on the planet goes down. And that's accelerating. And that's too bad. And, once we get the number of people on the planet decreasing, then the standard of living can start to go back up. Now, civilized nations like China and Japan and parts of Europe have a population that's starting to decrease. So we need all nations to be part of civilized nations, and we need all nations to have a population that's decreasing. And this is the job of the United Nations and the International Monetary Fund, but they're not doing their job because they're corrupt, just like all the governments are also corrupt. And so this is really the only significant and important political movement on Earth today, is the depopulationism movement. And everything else is just, irrelevant details. So that's depopulationism. And I'm a depopulationist. And we all need to be depopulationists. We all need to just go back to common sense and keep it simple. And, end the madness. And we should have done this in the 80s and 90s. We should have done this in the last millennium. But we didn't. Because we're just, terrible people a terrible species, an invasive species, a species that is just, awful. But we need to change that. We need to do a U-turn, and we need to flip the script, and we need to start being the good, enlightened beings that we think that we are. And the only way to do that is through depopulationism. So we need to become depopulationists. We need to promote depopulationism. We need to vote depopulationism. We need to run for political office as depopulationists. And, the commies have already got this pretty much down. And now it's time for everybody else to get this down. And, that's the deal. And we can do this legally in free democracies very easily. We just have to start and stick with it and be committed to it and get everybody involved. And we will. We have to. There's no other option. And so that's depopulationism. I should probably talk about depopulationism more, but I think I've made my point sufficiently. I think that you, by now, have a fairly okay idea of what depopulationism is, and you need to think about this and decide whether you're a depopulationist. And hopefully you are a depopulationist. If not, hopefully you become a depopulationist. And hopefully you get loud about it, because it's not enough to just be a depopulationist and that's it. Now depopulationists have to talk about it publicly, consistently, and get everybody else on board, politically and otherwise, socially, culturally, morally, philosophically, ideologically. So that's depopulationism. And it's the job of the UN and the IMF to push this a depopulationist agenda. And they're doing it a little bit, but they need to do it more. They need to do it in a bigger way and a faster way. And a lot of it is female reproductive rights. Every female on Earth has the right to total and free access to all forms of birth control, including abortion. And any government that doesn't completely and totally agree with this is an illegitimate government. And illegitimate governments will be replaced quickly and peacefully by the United Nations. So that's where we're at. And so hopefully you're a depopulationist. Hopefully you support the depopulationism agenda. And if you do, then what's the next step? How do we as depopulationists implement this depopulationism agenda? We know what we have to do, so how do we do it? Okay, we know what the goal is, so what's the plan on achieving that goal? The answer to that question is that we need to have a world government. A free, democratic world government. This doesn't mean or just a world government. if people are communists, that's fine. That's not a problem. But ideally, it'll be a free, democratic world government. But there's room for free democracies and there's room for communist countries. That's not an issue. We can all come together. The world government actually does exist. It's called the United Nations and the International Monetary Fund. And the International Monetary Fund handles the economic issues for the world government, and the United Nations handles all the other different issues. The non-fiscal issues. So the world government already exists, and it has existed for, 60, 70, 80 years. And it's a good thing. It's doing good work. But we need one specific world government, like an umbrella for everything, because there's too many moving parts. The UN, the IMF, the World Bank, NGOs, different media outlets, different countries, different, stuff. So we need one world government that's one thing. And that was already created in the year 2000 by some guy in Portland, Oregon. But I digress. So the way to achieve depopulationism is to have one world government. And this world government would support what the UN is doing and would support what the IMF is doing and would assist them and augment them and simplify them and help human beings understand what's happening with the world government. It would help all people participate and contribute to the world government. And it would help everybody learn how the world government affects them personally and how they can affect the world government personally. And it lets everybody, it's inclusive, and it lets everybody be part of it. With the number one law being depopulationism. And then all the other laws are United Nations laws and international monetary laws, fund laws. So that's the world government. And it would be a global government that would be expanding, much like the European Union. So that's the world government. And this can totally be done side by side with free democracies, and it can totally be done side by side with communist nations, because there's just plenty of common ground here. Transparency is the key, but with the internet, you can have that. You can have total transparency with any government. On the online. That's the key, is that the internet can give you transparency for every government, regardless of its ideology. And that's, to a large degree, fiscal transparency, government fiscal transparency. And so now we're going to talk about money. We talked about Depop, which is the evolution of consciousness. We talked about a world government, which is the evolution of a government. We talked about Buddha and philosophy, which is the evolution of spirituality. And now we're going to talk about money and the evolution of money. Okay? Things are always getting better, including spirituality, Buddhism. Things are always getting better, including government. depopulationism. Things are always improving and evolving and getting better in terms of, uh, you know, everything. And that's great. And money's the same thing. Money's always improving and evolving and getting better. And the latest improvement and evolvement is cryptocurrency. And cryptocurrency should be and is completely, totally transparent. And so we need to have a new, and there's lots of different cryptocurrencies, and they're all more or less kind of transparent. But we need one currency, one cryptocurrency that's totally 100% transparent. And that has a roof and a floor. The roof would be $1 billion American dollars, and the floor would be you have enough money to afford food and water. So the roof is you don't die. I mean, the floor is you don't die, and the roof is $1 billion American dollars. And over time, that roof would lower and that floor would increase. And this is how you would resolve the economic discrepancies that we're seeing in the world today. Because the economic discrepancies that we're seeing in the world today are going to cause a lot of political problems for a lot of people. And the only logical way to resolve these issues in a peaceful manner would be to resolve this discrepancy, and the only way to resolve this discrepancy is to have a currency that unites the planet with transparency, that has a roof and a floor, and the roof gets smaller and comes down, and the floor gets larger and goes up. And some guy created this cryptocurrency in 2019 in Santa Cruz, California. And good for him. He's been a busy son of a bitch. So hopefully he can get that currency going. And that's that. Anyway, we need a new cryptocurrency where every single unit of currency can be tracked immediately by everybody everywhere, including the entire history of that currency from the moment it was created, so that every transaction is documented and available publicly online, and so that everybody knows where all the money is all the time. This will eliminate corruption. It'll eliminate theft. It'll eliminate hacking. It'll eliminate everything that's bad, including this wealth discrepancy that we see today. And like I already said, this wealth discrepancy is going to create a lot of political problems for a lot of people, and it could get very messy and very bumpy in lots of different parts of the world. And the only way to resolve this quickly and peacefully and permanently is with a transparent crypto that has a floor and a roof, and the floor is always going up and the roof is always going down. Because it's either that or, the guillotine. So I'll take that over the guillotine. So that's the deal. That's the history of the universe. And we've focused on, of course, the human race in the last couple of centuries. But yeah, it's going to be a difficult future. It's going to be a difficult century. It's going to be a difficult millennium. It's going to be a difficult decade. There's going to be a lot of problems, a lot of drama, and we need to handle this. We need to be ahead of the curve. We need to be proactive. We need to be pragmatic. We need to have a plan in place to deal with these things as they come up. And we need to, get out in front of this thing, because we're way behind schedule. And we're way behind the 8 ball on this. And we need to get on it. We should have gotten on it in the 90s. We should have been all over it when this millennium began. But for whatever reason or reasons, we just totally blew it. And we can't afford to blow it anymore. So that's the history of the universe so far. But looking into the future, it's going to be a lot of drama and a lot of funky freakouts. And we need to be able to deal with these things properly and correctly and quickly and thoroughly. And I feel I've outlined how we can do that. And so all that's left is to go and do it. I think I've explained the problems. I think I've explained the solutions. I think I've explained what's going on. I think I've explained what we need to do. So I don't think it's no longer time for discussion and analysis and contemplation. It's time for action. Online, offline, everywhere, all the time. It's time for us to implement this. And we will. And that's good. And I'm looking forward to that. I've been waiting quite a while to get to a point where we can actually move forward as a species. So that's my video. I wanted to go over an hour. I can sit here and ramble on for another 7 minutes, I suppose. Yeah, that's the history of the universe. The video autobiography of the universe. I'm the universe. You're the universe. We're all part of the same thing. And we all need to behave accordingly and correctly. And we will. And so that's about it. I really don't have anything else to say. But thank you for watching. Feel free to make your own video about these subjects with your own personal opinion. And peace in the hood. Keep it real. Rock on. Yo.